This video is about gardening philosophy and gardening expectations. I wondered for a long time if this kind of video would be useful to anybody, and I had my doubts, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought someone might actually get something out of it, so here it goes. First of all, I've been gardening for many years, and I have a normal track house with a normal size yard, and I've gardened in both my front yard and backyard, and a little bit in my side yards too. I had a lawn and I removed it about 5, maybe 6 years ago, and put in beds and have grown a great deal of vegetables and flowers and also fruit trees. I also do a lot of beekeeping, and I have chickens. I do a lot of canning, and so I've gotten a lot out of my garden, and I thought I could share some of my experiences to help answer some questions of people who are trying to get into gardening for the first time. The kind of gardening I'm talking about is not landscaping so much. I'm talking about more annuals and biennials and some perennials rather than all perennials, making a low maintenance garden. I'm talking about type of gardening that's more active, that requires growing things from seed, that gets you out in the garden all year long if you live in a mild winter region. So the kind of gardening I'm talking about is not for everybody. What I'm looking at here is, or the way I think about it is, I'm creating a refuge, or like a Garden of Eden, right at my home. A refuge from the world that I can relax in and enjoy year-round in my climate, because we have mild winters. I'm in Sunset Zone 14 or USDA Zone 9B. So we're in a Mediterranean climate, and we can garden all year long. I have some notes here with me because there's no way I can remember all of this. The first thing is, if you have some space and you have light, you can create a garden. Ultimately, those are the two things you need. Some space, it could even be a windowsill or a patio. It can be a yard, and then you need light. It's very difficult to do this without proper light. Generally, if you're going to grow, say, food like vegetables, you're going to need at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight a day. And most flowers as well like sun. Many people have shady yards, and I will talk about light issues in another video. But as long as you've got light and space, you can do this. You also need to have some patience. Gardening is a slow hobby, and I'll talk more about that later. But it takes a few years to get a garden refuge created, and therefore you need some patience. Birds, insects, and other wildlife will visit your garden and transform it into an ecosystem and make it come alive. And that will take not much time, actually. The organisms will find your garden quickly and take up residence. And that adds another wonderful dimension to gardening. Every year in gardening is an experience. It's an education. It's a chance to try new things and to see what works well, and to redo things that have worked well in the past. It's a lot of fun. It's a hobby that keeps you active. A gardener is thinking about gardening all year long. And the idea of getting to try a new flower or a new vegetable or put in a new fruit tree is very exciting to gardeners. It never gets old. It took me some time to realize this, but most people in their home gardens have perennials. And if you look around your neighborhood, I think you'll see lawns, which are perennial. You'll see trees and shrubs, which are perennial. You may see bulbs, which are perennial. Perennials are good looking, usually slow growing. They're easy to care for and fairly low maintenance. The problem with perennials is it doesn't demand much of you as a gardener. Occasionally you have to prune them, deadhead them, remove old flowers. Occasionally water and fertilize, maybe pull out a plant that died and put in a new one. But perennial gardening is a lot more static and just less dynamic than gardening with annuals and biennials. I think if you look around, you will see very few people grow annuals. You might see sunflowers, that would be a common annual. Also, some people that grow tomatoes in the summer, those are perennials, but they're grown as annuals. So there are some examples like that. A lot of people grow California poppies, which again are perennials, but are grown as annuals typically. But besides that, you just don't see a lot of annuals and biennial plants. You see perennials. Now, perennials can be beautiful and interesting if they're done well and thoughtfully. But around where I live, a typical house would have a tall fescue lawn, a Bradford pear, maybe a xylosma shrub or an India hawthorn, maybe a New Zealand flax, privet. These are the kinds of common perennials you'll run into, and maybe English ivy. It just goes on and on. They're fine, but they're fairly static, and they just don't require much of you as a gardener, and they're just not that exciting. Annuals and biennials are plants that live 1 or 2 years respectively. Usually gardeners growing a lot of annuals and biennials are growing them from seed. Growing from seed is a whole new experience. If you've only done perennials that you purchase in 1 gallon or 5 gallon pots, growing from seed is a whole nother experience. When you grow from seed, you get to first search for the seeds, and that's where you get to pore over seed catalogs, which is a lot of fun and something gardeners always look forward to. Also, you get to experience the plant during its entire life cycle, which is something you don't normally do with perennials. Now, these plants have a short lifespan, which makes gardening with them more intensive. Also, sometimes they don't look all that good. With their senescing, for instance, or dying, they don't look real good, and they need to be pulled out. Sometimes if it's a food plant, you're waiting for the last fruits or whatever to be produced. Well, the plant can look kind of ratty, and that could be a problem in some situations. Also, when you're starting off annuals and biennials, they're very, very small, and so the garden space doesn't look like it's filled up, and eventually it will fill up, but you've got to be patient. The range of species available to you if you grow from seed is practically unlimited, and I don't think a gardener could try all the different seeds available in one lifetime. So in my personal opinion, a rich gardening experience includes annual plants, biennials, and perennials in a thoughtful mixture.